I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet here live with Golan. The dude will hopefully be with us in a few minutes. If you're just tuning in, welcome everybody. And we are talking about the Doha Forum. We spoke about it a little bit yesterday, but this is one hell of a weird and incredibly bad actor speaker list. Aside from Tucker Carlson and his partners speaking there, you have, Arabs, their Arab sweetheart, Christiane Amanpour speaking there. Go on.
Yeah, who we already know is a very deceitful, bad actor who kind of news washes a lot of the stuff that's happening over there through her quote unquote legitimacy. So right away we're off with a bang. Continue, please.
I mean, no, go through the list because I'm failing to see certain names. Maybe I pulled up the wrong page. I know she's speaking there for sure. I know the head of the Gaza Health Ministry is, or the head person from Al Jazeera is speaking there. And
Well,
so,
you mentioned him the other day, 1789 capital. Mead Malik, who is, of course, one of Tucker Carlson's main financiers. Neil Patel is speaking there. He is the co-founder and CEO of the Tucker Carlson network. You did mention Amanpour. This is kind of interesting, actually, how we start off with just those alone. Let's say I didn't continue the list to include president of Syria and some of the other people, but we're already in a place that's awful. Then you have the editor of Middle East Eye. Now, for those of you who don't know what Middle East Eye is, it is basically one of the jihadi propaganda networks. On my other podcast, on You Can't Handle the Truth, I regularly talk about all the places you absolutely should not get your news from when it comes to the Middle East. Middle East Eye, number one with a bullet, quite literally. A lot of those people are Hamas. You do have Yalda Hakim, the Sky News presenter, very even-handed, fair and balanced, obviously. You have some people from Goldman Sachs. You have some people from Newsmax, and you do have some people from Breitbart. So kind of interesting. Now, you get into the global leaders, and then it becomes a whole other thing. You have the prime minister and foreign minister of Qatar. You have the chairperson of the Qatar Foundation. That's the person who's been spreading dollar bills all over the world to make sure that Qatar can, we mentioned news washing, can movie wash, art wash, event wash, politics wash, all of their terrorist ties. Bill Gates is going to be chatting over there. He's awesome.
so is this on Junior.
And I was gonna wrap it up with and my champion, Donald Trump Jr., another partner in the 1789 Capitol. And although he shares a name with Donald Trump, he's not the guy running the Trump organization. That's Eric, and he is the guy that increasingly looks like an extra in the movie Wall Street, but also happens to be besties with the Tucker Carlson
Well,
brigade.
he's on the board of 1789 Capital.
Of course he is. He's a partner there.
So I think it's interesting that the names you're bringing up Breitbart.
You also, by the way, I didn't even mention heads of state and foreign ministers from Ghana and Lebanon and Iraq and Kurdistan and Turkey and Spain, where I'm from and where I live. And I'm watching Spain become more and more radicalized and paid for by Qatar, and Nigeria and Liberia and all these other places. The list goes on and on. It's you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the opening scene of the original Naked Gun, except instead of sitting around a table talking, they're all speaking in front of a panel.
Oh, that's actually really funny. That might be one of your best jokes you've actually told. It's interesting. It's like, this sort of makes the Riyadh Comedy Festival look somewhat sane. I'm sort of like looking, the people from the Riyadh from the Comedy Festival must be looking at this going, look who's appearing in Qatar. I mean, literally, this is for people that don't understand. I mean, at least Saudi Arabia doesn't put airs that they're not evil or that they haven't done certain things. They're trying to change. They're trying to diversify. This is interesting because of the Breitbart piece, because I'm a Breitbart. I go there quite often. And if you notice, they don't go after Doha. They do not go after the Muslim Brotherhood quite often.
Notice that. In fact, you and I even had a conversation offline about this at one point, where Breitbart is a site that first of all, very widely used, was for a time very widely respected, still is in many circles. And
Huge.
I have noticed, yeah, and I have noticed that that they go really light-footed when it comes to certain people, and it's the same people that the people they go light-footed on are the same people that many other organizations that are bought and paid for by Qatar also go light-footed on. So strange, I guess, or perhaps not so much.
And just for the record, people could look this up. The title, there are 360,000 citizens there. And, the other day we discussed, you got confused, is Emily Saves America podcast. She was paid
It
to
was the
go there.
podcast, not the
Yeah.
show, Emily
No,
in
no,
Paris, which
no,
is
no, 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 not
significantly
Emily. They weren't
Emily
filming.
Saves America.
Yeah, Emily.
But by the way, you know what the reason is? The reason I made that mistake? Because they're putting so much money. Now, Barbara Broccoli, the first project that she's producing after being the sole producer of the James Bond series, inherited from her father Cubby, the first thing that she's producing is in Qatar. The first thing that David Aiello is directing since his last project in Qatar. H4 in Qatar. Neon in Qatar. These are, for those of you who don't know, Neon has won Best Picture 3 years in a row, or three cycles in a row. A24, probably one of the biggest producers or distributors on the market. So why would I be surprised if a Netflix show suddenly had it on there? Netflix has an entire cachet of money, cache of money. I say I do what you did. A cache of money that is going
Now,
strictly to Arab filmmakers.
you
So,
have cachet, not
I
cash.
do. Yes, thank
And
you.
and just for the record, I really want people to understand something. About a couple months ago, Golan invited me to an event out here, and I didn't end up going. The only reason I was going to go was because it was a movie he had produced, and I was going to go to support. And I didn't go. And I felt he's like, don't worry about it. He's like, and he said to me, you're the only person I know that would not take it, that would not, that wouldn't go to an event like this, because I've been there and I've done it. I've lived quite the life of invitations and parties. And I was thinking about this a lot last night because, Tucker Carlson had his Christmas party sponsored by the nicotine company. And it was a who's who of asshole podcasters and just, I mean, just
That's right.
one big event of douchebags. And so for people to understand, this doesn't come from a place of jealousy, like I wish I was there. I've been invited to places. I'm not saying this in a braggadocious or any sort of way. I just managed to whatever. And I'm looking around, and people should know this. People should see this, that these people that they're no different than this. This is why I don't like members of the House and never, because at the end of the day, they don't care really about their constituency. They're all at the bar in Washington, go on after they got into fights that day, drinking it up, talking to the lobbyists,
100%.
not giving a crap about the people. And the same thing goes for, in a sense, for most of the media. They don't give a crap about the people that they talk to or anything like that. So while they're fighting, and Candace is at the party, and that the guy that praised Hitler's at the party, that and I'm blanking on his name. That
You're talking about the world's greatest historian?
no, the MMA fighter, that
Oh,
Dana White,
the MMA fighter. Okay,
the,
yes,
the,
yes, yes.
the MMA fighter that cut loose, and Michael Knowles, and it's just like just one bit, and obviously Marjorie Taylor Greene was there, and it just looked like one big creep fest for that nicotine company that he shills for. And listen, it's real. This is really the reason I bring this up so much, is because this is hurting President Trump's agenda. I brought this up yesterday, and I will continue to bring this up. President Trump is doing everything possible for America. He's doing everything he could think of, domestically and abroad, to save the country and to save the world that he was left with when Biden left office. It was a freaking mess. He is doing yeoman's work. People like Scott Bessent are working night and day. And the problem is, this isn't being highlighted enough. So if we lose the midterms, I blame them. I fully blame these people for all their 2-year focus on Israel, and not the 1-year focus of, or the 10-month and change focus of Trump's highlights and wins and everything he's trying to do go on. Even if we disagree with some of the things, or even if he's doing everything a human could do.
It's very interesting because there is so much. First of all, I want to point out something that you've pointed out to me. And it's one of those things that if you've ever been in either a really good relationship or a really bad relationship, you'll know what I'm talking about. When
I probably
you've
know
been
both,
dating,
or more
yeah,
bad.
right. Yeah. But if you've been dating for like 3 months, but it feels like it's been years because it's so sumptuous and wonderful. Or
I've asked
even
you
if
not to
it's
describe every relationship I've been in.
or it feels like 10 years because it feels like you're in prison. We have only had Trump in the White House for 10 months and change. So and with everything that is being said, all the vitriol by the people who are trying to destroy, all the people who are trying to bring him down, all the people who are just reaping likes and follows and all that nonsense, or straight up cash from Qatar in order to bring down America. With all of that happening, all this negativity that is sitting on top of everything that Trump does, because that is what's out in the ether, it feels like he's been in office for several terms already instead of just 10 months. That's not a lot of time. And despite the fact that he has had major wins in that time, what he did with the southern border, that's a major win. And he did it so quickly. We're talking about illegal crossings plummeting to basically zero. Under Biden, inflation wasn't just high. It was like a national balloon that was floating above us with helium in it. Eggs were the price of jewelry. So yeah, now people still look at it and say, hey, I'm still paying a lot of money for various things, and that's on Trump. And we do know that over 60% blame Trump for that. Now, in 10 months to bring down all of the inflation, I compare it to this. Closing the national border, or the southern border, can be done very quickly. But we had millions of people that had already trickled in under Biden. Getting all those people out again takes a tremendous amount of time. As I was saying, I compare it to as some of you know, I lost a tremendous amount of weight. Gaining weight is so easy. If I decide I want to put on weight in a week, lock me in a room with a handful of pizzas and get out of the way, and I will walk out like Brendan Fraser in The Whale. But to lose that weight can take me years, and maybe I never do. So that's the difference, right? Closing the border is easy. That's closing your mouth. But now you got to lose the weight you already have, and that's getting rid of the people. Inflation is a similar thing. It takes so much time to do it. So people who are saying, hey, it's been 10 months, how come my eggs aren't a penny each, are missing how much energy and effort and policy, and by the way, with everyone blocking everything that's happening the entire time, that'll really take effect for you to see the effects in a way that feels like your kitchen table issues are being taken care of.
I think you're 100% right. And I think the part that frustrates me the most, I mean, it really does frustrate me, is that the people that are supposed to be in his corner is especially listen, the pod sphere is huge. You're talking about huge amounts of people that are listening to these shows that think we're getting into World War III.
They don't, no, they don't think they're getting to world. They are saying that because that gets clicks. World
Right.
War III, that's whoa, crazy. I got to listen to this podcast. Then they were wrong.
Right.
Did you and I have this conversation? All
Yeah.
the people who
But
predicted
what
the
I'm
end of the
saying
world
is,
and were like, January 2nd, 2025, the world's going to end. Now it's January 3rd, and they're like, I
yeah.
meant May 1st, right?
You
You're
know what?
like,
You know what? From now
huh?
on, when people start making these crazy announcements, they should be forced to sell their real estate. If you're going to make an announcement of the world ending at a certain date, you should it should be written down that you will sell all your real estate a day or 2
No,
days
no,
before.
it's the world's going to end. You have to donate it.
No, I want to buy it. Uh,
No, what I'm saying is you could donate it to me. That's fine. I'm
yeah,
saying you have to give it away. You
yeah,
can't make
and
it. What's the money going to help you? The world's ending.
just
January
to prove
2nd, you said so.
just to prove your point, it's really funny when you go to Breitbart.
Mhm.
The top headline is "Globalists Reignite War on America's Free Speech," and then it gets into some UK stuff. It doesn't mention that
Do
globalists
you
are
know what
assembling in.
globalists means?
Well, that's neither here nor there. But it doesn't bring up that globalists, that they're in themselves globalists right now, are meeting in
Mm,
Doha at the forum.
right.
Listen, all I want, Golan,
Including Breitbart.
yeah, all I want for Christmas, Golan, and Hanukkah is literally for all these bad actors. Like, I just want people to wake up and realize, listen, they're always going to be speaking, but I know this sounds naive or it sounds stupid. Just look at what Trump is trying to do. Look at what he has done. Stop listening to angry, miserable, doom and gloom people. We're here trying to say, praise Trump and we might win the midterms. Continue knocking Trump and we will get annihilated in the midterms.
That's right. And by the way, just for those of you who didn't get my reference, when Breitbart says globalists, since they stopped going after Qatar for some reason, globalist means Jews. Judah, did you know that? Jewish philanthropists, Jewish politicians, Jewish financiers, Jewish intellectuals. Read the articles. It's always Jews when it's globalists or neocons. Jews. Weird how that works for the people who don't go
Well,
after
it's also
Qatar.
weird. It's also mildly interesting that when Michael Dell decided to donate $6.2 billion, the Jewish part wasn't in front of his name. I could
Yeah.
guarantee you if that donation had gone to Israel, it would have been a far different topic. Anyways, I think we've covered that enough. It's just absolute crap show in Doha.
Yes.
It's literally a country that harbors terrorists. It's a country that creates terrorists and funds terrorists. And it's a country that is trying to destroy our very core. Okay? This isn't speculation, people. Go and look at the numbers online. They are very easy to find how much money Doha has given to our lobbyists, to Congress to lobby, to our university systems, to our entertainment industry. These aren't hard numbers to find, so please don't play the dumb game. This is the Muslim Brotherhood. They are pure evil. So yes,
And I'll just add to all of the money they hand to us in order to have influence while they are literally housing Hamas in five-star hotels in Doha, while they're literally rolling out the red carpet for the Taliban. Let's not forget, literally while they were actively blowing up American soldiers. They were inviting the Taliban to hang out in Qatar. Al Jazeera does everything they can to badmouth everybody in the West and try and undermine anything that has to do with democracy. And on and on. So I mean, this is not new at all.
No, it's not. I got to say this. I don't blame Jake Tapper. I mean, Fox News or the Jake Tapper botches J6 pipe bomb suspect, this 30-year-old white man. I got to be honest. I never thought I would defend Jake Tapper.
I'm so curious to hear you defend this one.
Well, I assumed he was white. I don't think there's a soul in America that assumed that this pipe bomber was black that looked like he could be like he was a combo of Urkel and Dave Chappelle.
I haven't seen a picture of the guy, and now I'm gonna have to go look it up.
Just go to Fox News, and I mean, just go look at this.
I read the article on CNN. There was no photo.
Yeah, go to Fox News right now and look at his photo, and you tell me. And his name is Brian. His name is Brian Cole. So I automatically assumed. I really did. And by the way, I'm very one of those people. I watch a lot of the forensic shows. I watch, you know me. I watch all of those shows, and there usually is, to profile. You don't profile black people as pipe bombers. You just don't. And so
It's Keegan Michael Key. Is that who that is? Oh, no. Okay, that's Brian Cole. Sorry, continue.
So I will defend Jake Tapper on this stuff because I assumed until I saw the picture. Because if you go by the statistics, they're literally, as far as the way people murder people, you could always, it's like women are more prone to use poison when they murder their husbands. You know what I mean? Like there's like certain, so
Sure.
I'm gonna give Jake Tapper a mild defense, but this is and I'll start my own conspiracy. It looks a little conspicuous. I got to be honest with this guy, but that's just me.
What part of it is it? The confession? Which is the part that is suspicious to you?
That he's black. I'm totally racially profiling that I don't see black people as pipe bombers. I'm sorry. But, I got to be honest, this was never one of those things that I was heavily invested in. I know Bongino and those people were, as I brought up, you missed yesterday's show. I'm so much more interested in them arresting the Minnesota sheriff that, is threatening ICE agents. I'm much more interested in people that are in those things. This is great. Good win for the FBI, but I want to see the DOJ arresting people that are causing violence. I do believe that people from the Washington Post and the New York Times should be called up and leaking a story that Pete Hegseth ordered a double tap that we know now is not true on the narco-terrorist boats. This is what I want to see being done. I want people on the left to have the fear of God in them for when they say something. Listen, Golden, this is a reality show, just so people understand this. I used to write a lot for the American Spectator, and I brought this up on the show before. Great editor there, Vladi Prashinsky. I think that's how I can never pronounce his name. Just an amazing editor. And I had sent him a piece about George Soros. Now, his issue wasn't he knows Soros is a bad guy, but he didn't know that Soros, I brought up the fact that he was on 60 Minutes, and he said he had no guilt about being a capo, about betraying his own people. Vladi double and triple checked this story because he didn't want to be sued by George Soros for something I had written. They have a lot more to lose. So that's what I want to see. I want to see that same, and the only person that could make the left scared right now is somebody like Pam Bondi. And that's not happening. They're still every day reporting false stories, telling tall tales, and people will die. Pete Hegseth has a rough job to do, and the Washington Post and the New York Times there should be consequences for headlines like that are completely not true. And good to see the dude.
Did you hear what we're talking about, my friend?
It's good to be here.
Did you hear what we were talking about? You can dive right in instead of hearing my voice again.
I caught the tail end of it.
He missed my first part with me saying the dude's here. And if you are listening, you're listening to the Daily Cheat Sheet here with the dude and Golan. We are on Rumble Live for everybody that's listening to this via podcast. So tune in most days at 1:30. You will see us on Rumble Live. We'll probably end up going on YouTube and everywhere else. But for now, it's Rumble Live, which is not an easy place to go live. Man, I brought up the fact that Jake Tapper, first of all, made the mistake, which is the same mistake I made, where he assumed that the pipe bomber was white. And he said this, and I would have made the same assumption. So I'm not.
He said that he made the mistake?
No, he didn't say that.
Not on the air. Not on the air. No.
I know, because I put out a tweet about it, and basically it's a picture of the guy that he's talking about, clearly a black male, and, Jake Tapper is there saying he was a white guy.
Yeah, but I got to be honest with you. I'm not Jake Tapper, so he should have seen the reports, and ABC should have fact-checked that. And this is what we're talking about, which is fact-checking. I assumed, men, just to be honest, that he was white before I saw the story come out.
There's a concerted effort by a whole slew of people up and down the chain of command, from the previous administration all the way down to the local police officers, that are booking black males and listing them on the arrest record as white.
Muslims too, by the way. It's people are bringing this up, that Kash Patel and the FBI are going back to the Obama standards of how they classify people.
What's the Obama standards on how they classify?
Everybody's white.
Kash Patel is doing that?
They did that with
this is what's being reported.
We're being reported that the shooter last week wasn't a terrorist attack at the National Guard. The Afghan national wasn't a terrorist attack. They're not. I think they did not say he was a Muslim. So yeah,
I'm less concerned with that, and I'm more concerned with the way they are booking people into the system. They're taking Mexicans and black people, black and brown people, and they are clearly listing them as white. I have a whole folder of the mugshots of these people and how they are listed as white. And the reason that they're doing it is because they're trying to skew the stats.
Yeah, of course.
And if you do that to the stats, then it becomes, illegal immigrants are not committing more crimes than Native Americans or white Americans or waspy Americans, whatever it is. They're doing that to deliberately, back up their narrative. And it's insane.
But you're preaching to the choir.
When I heard you say that Kash Patel is doing it, I was shocked, because I would expect Kash Patel to be undoing that.
Yeah, the Afghan national last week was not reported as a terrorist attack. I don't know what, especially, and this is by, my source is Laura Loomer. Okay.
Oh boy.
So, but no,
you know what? But you know what? I will say this: Laura Loomer, while I happen to think she's a little
her Islamidar.
No, but I think that she's a little, touched, but she gets it right more often than she gets it wrong when it comes to this stuff. And it's one of those things where I hate to admit it, because I go and going, oh, what did a crazy lady say this time? And then I'm like, oh, damn, she's right. Because what Men's talking about, a lot of people like to chalk these up as like clerical errors or, whatever. It's not, though. It's Men's right. This is narrative engineering is a good way of putting it. It's basically crime data ceases to be data. Crime data becomes propaganda at that point, right? So the patterns become impossible to analyze if you're not putting the correct information into it. I saw this when I was living in New York. I saw this all the time. When my wife and I would read stuff and go, there was like a Muslim guy that had attacked two cops with an axe, I remember. And the news, it's something, Judah, you've pointed out to me 100 times now, and now I can't unsee it. But the news was like, perpetrator. That's it. No information. And he was still, and the thing that was crazy to my wife and I remember we were living in Bushwick in Brooklyn, and which means the guy's still out there. He hadn't been caught. And I was like, you're giving me this information. How can I be on the lookout? How can I understand who to avoid, or how can I understand who to call the police on, or whatever? I have no idea. I didn't know height. I didn't know weight. I didn't know race. I didn't know religion. I didn't know anything. And now you've pointed out to me, when they don't tell you, it's always, what was it? What's your rule? Your rule is brilliant.
So if you don't know the name of a perpetrator within 3 hours of the story, they're black or Muslim, or in these days, trans.
We saw the same thing happening with the Asian community. So there's the whole movement to stop Asian hate. And
right. Where it was all black people beating up Asian people.
Killing, beating up, paralyzing. There was an Asian woman that was, at the ATM, and this black guy picked her up and then slammed her down on her head. She was paralyzed, and she's got 2 little kids. She was like the owner of like a nail salon or something. She was hardworking.
Yeah.
And Asian hate website, their Stop Asian Hate website, refused to name who the perpetrators were and who was committing these crimes against them. And what they kept on talking about was white supremacy.
It's like the ADL did the same thing.
ADL did the same thing too. Exactly.
The Anti-Defamation League, it drove me crazy with their statistics. When they would say that anti-Semitism was on the rise in Trump's first term, they would constantly talk about this, but they would never mention that it was black on Jewish crime going on in your hometown, or my hometown, but your neighborhood, let's say, of Crown Heights, even though you're not really from Crown Heights. But,
Me?
it was, yeah.
What do you mean I'm not really from Crown Heights?
I thought you were from Borough Park more than, I thought you were from
I grew up in Crown Heights. I'm
Crown Heights. So for me, it was Crown Heights. It was black on, it was like, that was the game. Remember, there was that punch game that was going on.
Yeah,
of just decking people on the street.
Knockout game.
The knockout game, yeah. And so listen, so again, getting back to it though, Golan, because I really believe this is an incredibly important issue. I'm happy the FBI caught this guy. And as somebody in the rant said, maybe he identifies as white, which I thought was a very funny comment.
That's very funny.
But Golan, getting back to it, this is a good win for them. But as like Bongino said last night on Hannity, this was like one of his radio show events. We want to see real events, real people get arrested. We want to see the people that got money, the people in Minnesota that received, the congressman and the mayor and everybody that received payouts from this Somali fraud scheme.
They're actually looking into that, and they're saying it's a lot bigger than they initially thought. Now they think it's multi-billions. In the first hour that they started to look into the PPE, the COVID money that was given out, they found $1 million in fraud in the first hour. That was like just opening the books. So the Somalis in Minnesota are running scared because they know that they've been defrauding the government forever. We were just talking about this. The mayor, the sheriff, everyone in Minnesota is coming out in defense of the Somalis.
Because they all received money.
Well, I don't know if they received money or they need their votes.
They received campaign contribution.
The mayor didn't get any campaign contributions from the Somali community.
Yes, he did.
No, they were giving it to the retarded-looking guy. I promise
you, it's being reported by Breitbart, the source of sources, Golan, that it was neither here nor there, Golan. This is who I want them going after.
What the reporting was, it wasn't just Breitbart, by the way. Others have picked up the story, is that they were spreading the money around. And they were spreading their money around in a way that makes sense if you are part of a community and you want the people who get into office to know that they really answer to you, or that things can go really well if you do what we want you to do. So you give it to both candidates. So yes, they were definitely pouring money into the guy you were talking about, who looks like he's got
just so you know,
two cousins who have two cousins as parents.
So, they gave him $9,000. They gave Ellison, Omar. They gave Ellison's son, Jeremiah Ellison, money.
Who's
so
Ellison?
Everybody there was getting money. Yes.
Who's Ellison?
The he was the former, I want to say he was he's the attorney general of Minnesota.
Okay.
And his son is running for, I guess his son is running for a certain position. And he was very big in the Obama administration, not a lover of us. And by us, I mean Americans, people. You thought I was going to say something else, but I mean of the American people. And
Yeah.
to go on this.
I was just going to say, we'll get into JD Vance's recent statements, and then we will be talking about some other people as well. But for the moment, they hate Americans.
Yeah. So, man.
The Fry guy, because what was the guy? Omar Fateh or something? The one who looks like he was completely inbred by his mother's cousin and his cousin's mother. Anyway, that guy was their guy. So I think he was the one. The point that I was trying to make is that even if you're not on the take, they've reached such a tipping point in Minnesota that normal politicians, and I'm not saying Jacob Fry or whatever his name is normal, but even the ones that are not necessarily on the take have to pander to that community, kowtow and pander to that community because they are such a strong voting bloc. And that's the fear, is that when you bring in people who hate the country and you bring in enough of them that they could sway a vote, now you have to kiss their ass. Now you have to let them get away with fraud. Now you have to let them get away with whatever they want because you need those votes, and it's all about the power.
Getting back to it, because I want to wrap this subject up a little bit, this is who I want to see and I think people are going to lose patience with people like Pam Bondi. I really do, because I'm losing patience. And
I was going to say, you don't have to say people. I think everyone on this podcast is losing patience enough already with waiting. And
I used to say to Mend, be a little more patient. I mean, he was the one that
Men's been banging this drum, and you've been banging this drum, and I think I'm probably the most patient of the three of us, and I'm out of patience too. And so I think at a certain point you have to say you're not doing your job. There's so much. I mean, Mend, it's something we've talked about 100 times on the show, but we've got piles of evidence. Like, we put out piles of evidence. Just this podcast. We talk about so much evidence that you can now look up. You don't even have to be privileged. You don't have to get clearance. You can see it firsthand, and there's still stuff not happening. There's still no movement. I think everybody is getting frustrated.
Yeah, I think, man, my favorite story out of the week is your favorite word is that Tim Walz is how he's getting drive-by retard shouts at his house. And I'm not kidding either. People are just driving by his house screaming retard, and he's like, this is going to cause violence. No, it's just going to cause a bunch of people to scream retard at your house. And I think this has to be, man, when you look back, when they do a deep dive into Kamala Harris and her picking of this numbnuts, like they really need to, somebody's got to look at do a book of what went on. How we know the process in a sense, man, but I just love that the word you love is being thrown at his house.
First of all, that's fantastic, and it's very appropriate. Did you see how tried to throw
Josh Shapiro
under the bus, and he unloaded on her? Did you see that?
Yeah.
But Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, the guy is retarded, so it's not even really an insult. He's got diminished capacity. He's just doesn't have it. He even told Kamala that he's a moron, and she picked him anyway, which is very telling.
Yeah,
I want you to talk more about the Josh Shapiro thing. I want to get into this. Do you mind?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I want to hear your take on it. This is a men's take, if I ever heard.
I was going to bring it up the other day,
but I want to hear men's take on it. This is a men take. If I ever saw a subject that needed a men take, this is one of them.
So she characterized Josh Shapiro as selfish and like a maniac with his ambitions, and that he wanted to be a co-president with her.
Yes.
And he wanted to be in the room with every major decision that was going to be made. And that's why she went with Tampon Tim. And he came out.
She's been hinting at that for a while, and then she just unloaded. And so this was his moment to strike back.
He pretty much unloaded on her, and he goes, she's trying to sell books to cover her ass. I forgot what else they quoted. There was some things that they quoted. I mean, they said that he wanted to be a co-president, which is not true. She said that he wanted to be in every meeting. He said it's not true either. But if you're going to be interviewed,
I'm just going to add the thing about the craziest thing about it to me is that Kamala's saying this all as a negative, right? But if we think back, okay, because we're old enough to remember when Biden was president and she was vice president, and this was the thing that everyone was praising their administration about. She was in every meeting. Biden kept saying, she's the last person I talk to before I make a decision. Like, it was exactly the thing that she was being praised for, that she was being pushed for president as a result of. I mean, she was basically being co-president. Some people actually said out loud. And then now she's going to turn around because he has ambition and wants to be co-president, wants to be in the room and all. He literally is doing what you are so proud of yourself for doing. So it's not simply that she has this low self-esteem that she's going to pick retard Tim to be her vice president when he told her, I'm a retard. And then she was like, sold. That's bad enough. She also is a hypocrite. And I think that the American people, at least if they're like me, they despise hypocrisy even more than they hate stupidity.
Okay, well said, both of you. And just for the record, because listen to the people that are tuning into the audio. Like I said, we are doing Rumble and we read the rants. I like the talk radio style format. So Della Meow. We're not knocking Laura Loomer by any means. We actually love her reporting. What we're saying is there have been times where she's gone off the reservation a little bit. But when it comes to her Islamist stuff and all that stuff, listen, I would pay for her if we could. I would do a GoFundMe to get her to the Doha convention going on so she could do live reporting as Tucker and 1789 Capital. I would love if Laura Loomer crashed that event. I would have loved if Laura Loomer last night would have been at Tucker Carlson's Christmas party supported by the nicotine company. That would have been the most class thing ever if Laura Loomer would have crashed that party of like demented souls at the Tucker, and I'm surprised at some of the names like Dave Ramsey being there. Like, it's just whatever.
Look,
it is what it is.
You know what it is though? It's like when who was it? Big and Rich, John Rich was on Tucker. It's that question of, well, there still is a proximity to power that some people like, even if they recognize that power is toxic. And at a certain point, you have to make a moral decision about whether it's worth selling your soul to be around an audience that large, or to be around someone who might be able to sway elections or might be able to whisper in the ear of the vice president. At a certain point, you got to say to yourself, am I standing next to Goebbels? As opposed to walking away.
Perfectly said. And men miss that part where I said, it's like, when Golan had invited me. I've been to a lot of things. There are a lot of parties I don't go to that I get invited. It's just not my shtick. So this isn't like a jealousy thing. I'm not a party guy. But if given the chance, I used to have a rule. This is a true story, by the way, before no cash bail guys. I had this rule with Ben Stein. It was the Al Sharpton rule. And that meant if we were in the same room, I could deck Al Sharpton and Ben would bail me out. Okay. It was literally the Al Sharpton rule that if I saw him at an event, I could deck him because of the way he destroyed Brooklyn and the Crown Heights riots. The guy is literally.
Did it just apply to Al Sharpton?
Okay. I know we've changed it
Did
to
it just
other
apply to
people,
Al
but
Sharpton?
originally it was. No, it was originally it was just Al Sharpton. And listen, it's changed to certain people now. I won't bring up their names, but I want to move on a little bit past all that stuff. Again, things are going well in this country right now, people. We things are going well. Are they going in our time? No, nothing happens though in our time. And everybody that always says God's time, I truly believe that. Trump is working his butt off, man, as far as the economy goes. And we're seeing a little bit. We're seeing prices get lower a little bit. Not as quickly as we want, right? But, it would be helpful if he had a wingman that was getting out there selling this message. So if JD Vance isn't going to denounce the pod sphere, get on the pod sphere, men, and talk about the accomplishments that Trump is doing. And that his refusal to do that, or his unwillingness to do that, is extremely telling.
Yeah, I think JD made a comment about anti-Semitism recently.
Not just a comment. He made a lot of comments recently.
He denies that it's rising in the
big.
Republican Party.
Yeah. He said sorry to interrupt, right. He said anti-Semitism isn't rising in the Republican Party. He's basing it on facts, right?
And then he said a lot of nice things about Zoran Mandani. He's listed a lot. There's been a lot of things lately that he has said that, at least for me, I don't know. You happen to have 3 Jews in front of you right here. For this Jew, I didn't like him to begin with. I like him less today.
Can I tell you something, though? I've always been able to call balls and strikes, and I learned this from Ben. I don't care. I got to be honest with you. I've never liked a politician going after Christians. This is why I loved Bill O'Reilly. I loved him because he was really so was Ben Stein. I mean, Ben Stein's the one in the forefront. Every year on Christmas time, there's an article spread online about Ben talking about Christmas and what it means to him and the Christmas tree. And he did this for CBS. I think he did it for CBS Face the Nation. He did like a 4-minute thing where people have used the transcript in a sense from it, where he talks about, Ben walks around for 30 days wishing people Merry Christmas. It's the funniest thing in the world. And this was something that I love that Bill O'Reilly used to fight about, was them taking Merry Christmas out of our institutions, out of banks, you can't go into a supermarket, man, and say Merry Christmas to somebody. You're not going to get Merry Christmas back.
I say it all over the place.
Right. So this is, so we're calling out JD Vance, not because necessarily, he needs to be called out, man.
I think it would have been helpful if JD Vance would say it's not exploding like it is on the left. That would be great, where he could at least acknowledge it, and then
not
also
what he
call
said.
out.
Yeah.
What's that? Where he could at least acknowledge it and call out the left for their absolutely unhinged rise in anti-Semitism, anti-Christianity, anti-West, anti-America fomenting that they're doing, their leaders are doing. And there's a big difference here. What's happening on the right is generally not leaders. It's not elected officials that are out there saying this crazy stuff. But on the left, you have it coming from the Rashida Tlaibs, the Ilhan Omars, the Jasmine Crockett's, and all of those types. So there's a lot of elected officials on the left that are spewing this anti-Christianity, anti-Jewishness, anti-West, anti-our values. They don't even know what the Constitution stands for. Like, these people are making statements, which is where it gets, I was thinking about this yesterday, it gets really dangerous when not just your elected officials, because we were talking to the guys from America First Legal, and Judah brought up this hearing that they had, and I forget who it was. Judah, you would know better than me, but some elected official said, where is that written? And he answers,
it was Mazie Hirono.
Yeah.
And she was interviewing Gene Hamilton, the great Gene Hamilton from America First Legal. And she said, well, what court is that in? And Gene looked up as one of the greatest clips of all time and said, the Supreme Court.
Right. So you have these elected officials that don't know the law. And now we're learning through a lot of these judges that have been letting people out of jail that they never passed the bar. Some of these people literally don't know law, yet they are presiding over cases. They don't know the law. So what protects us? What protects our way of life? What protects America? Is it the Constitution, or is it the people that need to uphold the Constitution? And when you have elected officials that don't know what our Constitution means or what it says, and then you have judges that haven't studied the law and they don't know what it means, this whole thing could be eroded in one generation. I think Ronald Reagan said it takes 1 or 2 generations for us to lose all of our freedoms. And that's why we need to continuously be vigilant about this stuff. And what the left has been doing with the Soros and the Open Society Foundation, all of those organizations, the NGOs that are deliberately undermining our way of life in the West, this is their goal. This is what they're doing. They are putting people in that are deliberately incompetent.
You're raising a really good point, though. And I think a bigger point that to add on to what he's saying is, I became a conservative because of the open tent of what I believed to be a real open tent. I looked at the Conservative Party. I loved the way they defended religious freedom, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. I loved all that stuff. I truly did. And then when MAGA came along, and I'd written about this, Golan, I would have ventured to say, if you would have gone into a MAGA convention or whatever rally, not that they were pro-abortion or anything like that, because people know I'm pro-life. But I would venture to say that wasn't the top of many people's list. It was this sort of feeling of like the uncool kids being in the same group. The people that think a little differently. We don't all think the same. But that's, these podsphere people are trying to really dig into that and get on the hate train of
the thing I really don't understand about it, I have to say, is that it reminds me a bit of, I was at Marvel Studios, and it reminds me a bit of that moment when all the comic book geeks, all the nerds, the quote unquote outcasts suddenly came together and they became the most powerful people in the entertainment industry. All the people who loved comic books, all the people, you watch Stranger Things, clearly built by people who love comic books and Stephen King novels and obscure horror movies and all of that. And you have a similar thing here. They suddenly said, okay, our values are the values that we want to put into our art, and everybody else followed. Right? It became the biggest thing in the world. And I think MAGA is a similar thing, where you have a lot of people who were just outside the norm, just on the edges of the Republican Party. And Trump brought them together and said, this is the direction. And much like what happened with, the Comic-Con nerds, everyone followed. And I really don't understand, except for clicks and likes and follows and wanting to be contrarian or because it gets people's eyeballs, I don't understand why they would be pushing back on a system that will, first of all, espouse a lot of the values they already believe in. Many of the people in the pod sphere are people who have preached a lot of this stuff, closing the border, wanting more economic independence, a lot of the stuff that he's talked about, being more for America, all of this. And yet somehow they're finding reasons to push back and vitriolically. And, some of them, okay, they were saying, Bernie bros like the Joe Rogans who for a moment came over because it was cool to be part of this crowd for a minute, but then went back to being Bernie bros. That's not a surprise. But I really don't understand a lot of the vitriol that comes from the pod sphere, except for the fact that you get eyeballs when you are a contrarian. I think that's all there is to it.
It's I got to say, though, because men's got to jump off in a second, man, I get the clicks and the likes. I get everybody wants that, but you could still get clicks and likes without hate. And
but it is much easier to get clicks and likes.
No, it is. But you know what? Can I tell you something? I like Scott Besson. Scott Besson's gay. Okay. I don't want to hear Tucker Carlson and Milo the jackass for 2 hours talking about people ungaying people. Okay. And it drives me insane that nobody in the administration is calling out Tucker Carlson for having this person on, when the person that's responsible for our economy, when the person that's married and has a son, at least one child, and nobody is saying enough with this hate. We do not tolerate this hate in our party. We like people like Rick Grinnell. We like people like Scott Besson, or whoever the hell it is, that because they happen to be gay. Okay. And
we talked about this with Gene Hamilton from America First Legal, where this administration is one of the most diverse administrations on the planet, but they're not touting the diversity. It's all merit-based for the most part, and these guys are doing a great job. So if Scott Besson happens to be gay, that's not why he was hired.
No, that's not what I said.
I know. But I want to point that out, is that they've assembled an amazing cabinet, and it's all based on the capabilities of the candidates, regardless of their race, regardless of their sexual orientation. So now we have Tucker on, and he's pushing Sharia law. Let's just call it what it is. He's pushing Islam. Tucker is pushing Islam. He got bought by Qatar. He's going to Doha to this conference. Completely obvious what's happened to this guy who used to talk about the threat of Islam to the West, to America, and now he's singing the praises of Sharia law. And we all know what happened. He had a meeting with Qatar. The one guy invested in his.
Yeah, we discussed that in the beginning. So yeah, but yeah, 100%.
The guy invested in his network. That was a drop in the bucket, like we talked about yesterday. Qatar probably gave him $200 million and said, "Okay, you start talking fondly of us and what we do." And that's what he's doing. Candace, same thing.
Men, I want to ask, and listen, just so as people know, we argue a lot. The three of us argue a lot, and we love each other, but we still argue a lot. We had probably the stupidest argument about 2 hours ago, and we argue a lot.
I had no idea what that was about.
I have no idea at this point what it's about either. But my point being is, if anybody were to trash Mend, or if anybody ever asks me, and even I'll complain, I'll moan to Golan, but it's never anything that I wouldn't say to Mend. If anybody were to mess with my friends or mess with anybody, I would call them out, and I wouldn't be friends with that person anymore.
I'll tell you what, Judah, if you punched Al Sharpton at a party and I was there, I got your back.
The whole room would have my back. And everybody would be like, finally somebody did it. But my bigger point, Mend, is it's like if Bessent is a cabinet member, Huckabee is the ambassador to Israel. Then you have JD come out and say, don't go after somebody in my cabinet, which was Tucker's son. Well, what about all the other people that are being, gone after? And Mend, that's really a very dangerous thing. I'm going to Mend quickly because he's got to run.
Yeah, I mean, the dangerous thing is that I expect more from JD Vance. And by more, meaning JD is a super bright,
supposedly
articulate. He is. The guy is. Yet it seems like he is falling for the nonsense that the Tucker crowd is spewing, where not only does he not call it out, today he came out and said, I don't know what you're talking about, this rise in anti-Semitism. I don't see it on the right.
I don't think
maybe
that
he's
has
that
to do
insulated
with,
and that blinded where he
I
doesn't.
think this has to do with him not being bright or him being insulated or any of the above. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. Look, I may be the only one who feels this way. I'm not going to put words in your guys' mouths, but since the beginning, if you recall, I have been lamenting JD Vance as the pick. I read his book. Okay, it's not like I don't dislike him as a human
I was
being.
in the same boat.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is I don't want anyone to feel pressured to have to agree with me or not. I'm talking about
I read his
listeners
book too, and I'm a fan of JD Vance. And lately,
that's the
these
thing
things
is,
that I'm seeing,
I was a fan of his story is very interesting. I listened to his teacher on a podcast, and she was fascinating, and I loved his rise, and then when he started, and some of the stuff I'm like, okay, when he was calling Trump, American Hitler, and then he flip-flopped, and okay, fine, like maybe that's evolution. And then little by little, you kind of see the cracks, and you realize, oh, this guy is just a snake oil salesman. He's someone who is going to go whichever direction he needs to go. You could smell on him that he was not really America first. You could smell on him that he was not going to be supporting Trump's agenda. I was feeling this from the beginning. And I don't think it has anything to do with not being intelligent. I think he, exactly like Tucker Carlson, and exactly, sadly, like Donald Trump Jr., I think that he says the things that he means, and he says them very carefully. And when he wants to say something that he doesn't mean, he's doing it for political purposes. And I just don't trust the guy.
Listen, Men's got to run, but you saw the post that I wrote, or you saw what I wrote. And I will say this. I know there's a lot of hatred for Mike Pence because of one thing that he did. And I get it. He didn't back up his chief. But if you look at Mike Pence's track record, from the second he became vice president, the nominee, when Trump picked him and he said, Christians come home, he always had Trump's back. Always. Mike Pence always had Trump's back until he didn't. And people have never forgiven him for that. And that's fine. I'm not judging whether people want to forgive Mike Pence or not. But, man, I don't believe the same thing could be said for JD Vance.
Again, I'm a fan of JD Vance. I was very optimistic that he would do well, and I'm scratching my head with these things. I don't understand.
I mean, are you scratching your head about him not supporting attacking Iran? Are you scratching your head about him not supporting the Jews calling it Judea and Samaria? And are you scratching his head about how much he loves Tucker Carlson, or how he goes out of his way to support Tucker, and how he puts his son in Tucker's, pulls Tucker's son into his administration? Are you scratching your head about him pretending anti-Semitism doesn't exist in the GOP 5 minutes after Tucker Carlson interviews Nazi Ken doll? Are you scratching your head about him praising Mamdani? Or scratching your head about what? How many more scratching your heads do you have to do? You're going to get a head bleed at a certain point.
So the Mamdani thing, I could break out each and every one of these things and for the most part, explain away some of it. Mamdani, Trump praised them. Maybe this is their tactic now. They're just going to praise him and then squeeze him. All right, whatever. That's Mamdani. Putting Tucker's son into his cabinet. We don't know anything about the kid. The more I learn about the kid, the more troubling it looks. But from the outset, not much going on there. Defending Tucker. You could be friends with people that you diametrically oppose in philosophy, right?
This is where I disagree with you.
We saw it with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and
no, Mend,
Anton Scalia. They were best friends.
Mend, if you said to me you were a member of the Ku Klux Klan, we would no longer be friends. Okay? Well, maybe not the Klan, but a kid. But if you told me,
I would never do that because I don't think I would ever become a Democrat.
No, but my point is, we have a friend. We know somebody who really, our relationship with that person is very different in the way we look at that person because of who his family and he associates with.
Yeah.
And we have a friend that his
uncle's the head of the Notori Karta.
is the head of a very he's a Jewish guy that is in charge of one of the most evil Jewish organizations out there. And Mend and I can't look at this person the same way. We just can't. And we love him, but it's different. And it's changed.
Hold on. So going back to Golan, listen, everything that you mentioned, obviously taken in the collective, it's pretty damning. And what I like to do is I like to go in with an open mind with any of these situations, say, listen, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to be very, very generous until I'm proven wrong.
When does that happen? When he takes over and rounds up everybody? What's the moment where you're like,
JD's never going to take
Golan
over and
was
round.
right.
JD's never going to take over and round up everybody.
I'm being facetious.
What happened
to make
there?
A point.
What do I think is happening there? I don't think he's a fan of Israel. I don't think he's a fan of America first. He's like with this America only. You know, we heard when he talked about why are we taking out the boats in the Red Sea? Why aren't the Europeans? We only get 3% of our goods through the Straits of Hormuz or whatever it is that the Houthis kept on bombing, but the Europeans get 85% of their stuff from there. Why are we wasting all of our missiles and our money? And I agreed with that. Mm-hmm. So there are things that he does that I agree with. And I don't see it as a direct assault. The trajectory that this is heading in is very alarming.
I think that we're getting to a point where it's hard to ignore. And Mend, this argument that you can be friends with someone you're diametrically opposed with, there is a difference between being friends with someone that you have a political disagreement with and being friends with someone who you are out of moral alignment with.
Okay, but also the other thing is that
I could be friends with somebody that's pro-choice.
Anton Scalia.
I could be friends with
Again,
with somebody
that is a political disagreement.
Yeah, but also here's the other
democracy.
Difference. Here's the other difference is that Anton Scalia did not just agree with Ruth Bader Ginsburg because they were friends. He actually would get up on the bench and oppose her. And JD Vance is not doing any of that.
James Carville and Mary Madeline are married, or right, still married.
Yeah, and so is
Andrew
Girl. I thought James Carville was gay.
No, he's married to a very conservative woman.
Reagan's advisor.
And Andrea Mitchell from MSNBC is married to Alan Greenspan. We'll see you later.
Stefani's married to a cowboy singer guy. All right, see you, Mend. A pleasure.
See you. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend, everybody.
You too, man. I want to answer something you asked earlier, Judah, because we moved past it, but I don't want to let it go for a second. You were talking about why Trump isn't calling out the pod sphere, or why the entire administration isn't calling out.
No, I wasn't saying what. No, I didn't ask that question. I know why Trump isn't. Well, because he's not aware. Because he's not aware of it.
So let's talk about the entire administration. I don't know if I agree with that. Look, there was a time I did. At a certain point, the guy listens to media. We know he does. We know he's someone who, for better or for worse, sometimes it becomes a joke after a while, but he tunes into Bill Maher. He tunes into Joe Rogan. He doesn't sit and listen to 3 hours of conversation, but after a while, there's no way to pretend that he isn't aware of what's going on in these spaces that he also sat down with at a certain point. These guys started out supporting him. His interviews on the Pod Bros pods are part of what got him back into office. He knows that. And he knows that calling them out costs him something, and staying silent costs him nothing. I know this is me calling it out a bit, but I think it's important to point this out. We can't stick our heads in the sand and just pretend, right?
No, I'm not. By the way, just for the record, if I thought for a second he knew what was going on the radar, I would agree with you 100%. I don't think he's ever listened to a Joe Rogan podcast. Reason he got on the Rogan podcast was because of Dana White and Barron Trump. Okay,
that is certainly true. But to pretend he doesn't know at this point, when these questions are coming up regularly, when people like Ben Shapiro are in his ear, and we know that he is because he helped finance and push him into the presidency as well, we can't pretend he hasn't heard this from people before, or even his new relationship, his new friendship, whatever you want to call it, with Bill Maher. As Bill Maher said, I sat down and I talked about all these people who suddenly are doing all this stuff in the pod sphere. Like, these things have been mentioned to him. So even if he's not sitting and listening to it, he's aware of it. And I get part of it is his instinct is to build coalitions, right? His instinct is, I'm not going to carve out enemies inside my own tent. This is to your point about the big tent concept, and his philosophy of anyone who's for me, I'm for them is not. I think that's an overstatement, right? I think that there are people that he's going to say, as he did many times, like, I'm not going to let a white supremacist into my coalition. I'm not going to let Nazis into my coalition. He's been very verbal about that. But I think there are people who are on the fringes who he's like, I don't need to let them in, but I also don't need to mention them. I don't need to push them out. It's that silence that really bothers me. And I think there are people within his administration, his advisors in some cases, that are telling him denouncing fringe personalities alienates parts of the online energy machine that amplify him. And he's afraid to, I mean, I know fear is one of those things that I wouldn't necessarily always put in the same category as Trump, but I think that there is fear of pissing off a group that is going to suddenly turn on him. And he does, and this is where I'll agree with you. I don't think he realizes these guys have all turned. I don't think he's realizing that all these guys are now operating against his agenda, and that if before he was staying quiet because it helped his agenda, now they're actively hurting his agenda, and it is time to turn around and roar like the lion that he can be.
Yeah, listen, I give him the benefit of the doubt because of his actions, and that's always why I will give President Trump always the benefit of the doubt, is because of his actions. And that's why I don't give these people the benefit of the doubt, because I see their actions. And listen, we're running out of time. You're not going to be here for 3 days the next week. You're doing an incredibly noble cause. You are doing a documentary in Israel, and you are interviewing survivors of October 7th, but not just survivors. I don't want to give it away fully, but you're doing an amazing thing. So I really wish you good luck. And please take care of yourself over there, because you always burn the candle at both ends. So just try to enjoy the moment you're in, because you're doing something so incredible.
I'll be hearing stories of such resilience and bravery that it'll be hard for my heart not to soar. But I hate to say to you that, yes, again, I will be flying in, immediately going to shoot, leaving at 3:00 in the morning to come back here. And on the 11th, I'll already be back on the pod with you. So.
Can I say something though? I don't care if we go a little extras for weekend. It's I'm not jealous of anybody usually. I'm only jealous oftentimes of thought. Like if somebody has a thought that I wish I would have had, but I'm never jealous of people who have met. Because for the most part, I've gotten to meet most of the people I've wanted to meet. And the other day, as we were getting done, you got a phone call from somebody, and you're like, I got to take this phone call. Can I say who it was? Because I actually got a little jealous afterwards.
Sure, it's all right.
So Golan's like, we're in the middle of having this discussion, and Golan goes, "It's Lawrence Bender. I got to take the call." And for those that don't know, Lawrence Bender is one of the biggest Hollywood producers, but he's produced Reservoir Dogs, most of what Quentin Tarantino has
Pulp Fiction,
has made.
Good Will Hunting,
But I don't care about Good Will Hunting. It's the Reservoir Dogs.
Many people do,
because I saw that in Israel when I was still drinking, and you could smoke in a movie theater, or they would give you that timeout when you could smoke. And I just, that's one of those movies. I'm happy it came out while I was drinking, because, you could drink and smoke and watching Reservoir. And I actually got to say, I was like, oh man, that's cool. Lawrence Bender. That was like, good for you, man. That was like I was very excited for you. And
thank you.
I know you guys are.
He just produced what has now become the most watched dramatic series in the history of Israel. So, which was called Red Alert, which was also about October 7th.
Which is a 4-episode. It's on Amazon Prime. I encourage everybody to watch it. Good dude. It's such a cool thing. And for people that wonder who's the good guys sometimes and who's the bad guys, if you're almost 70 and you're still very successfully working, you're usually one of the good guys. If you're almost 70 and you should still be working and you're not, you're probably one of the bad guys.
It's a good way of putting it.
And I'm trying to be nice about it. And the last thing I'll bring up is Club Random, Bill Maher and John Malkovich was an amazing interview. John Malkovich is without a doubt a conservative. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't know if you caught the part where he was talking about getting a beating as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Maher's like, I got to spank it. You mean like, and Malkovich is like, beating.
A beating.
And he was talking about what's wrong with the youth.
Yeah.
And Malkovich was essentially saying is they no longer get beatings. There's no longer that threat. And it was a fantastic interview. I loved it.
There's some great anecdotes in that interview too. A friend of mine is the director of Con Air, and has told me some on-set stories, but Malkovich shared some pre-production stories of getting the script and the people he was with and how he knew he was going to do it. And it's I don't want to give it away. Check it out. It's really listening to him tell these stories is fun. I will say it's probably the longest during any Club Random episode. It's probably the longest I've heard Bill Maher be totally silent as someone just wove tales at him.
Yeah, no, and I just thought it was a cool thing, and it's like because it's interesting because everybody's perception, if you're old enough, he was like that merchant ivory guy from Dangerous Liaisons and Death of a Salesman, and then all of a sudden he played the killer in The Line of Fire.
Still one of my all-time favorite movies, Mitch. Woo!
One of my all-time favorites too. And Bill Maher was right. That movie deserved Oscars.
Oh my God. And he got his Oscar nomination for it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody deserved to win an Oscar for that movie. Wolfgang Petersen,
everybody
on down.
Yeah.
And it was funny because when they had asked him why he did it, he's like, I don't want to work with Clint Eastwood. And for people that aren't familiar with the Steppenwolf Theater, I'm pretty sure he probably left it because he didn't like the leanings where they were headed. He was trying to make it in a nice way, like saying the younger people have a different view. But it was him and Gary Sinise and William Peterson that are all part of the Steppenwolf Theater. I'm not going to, obviously we know Gary Sinise's political leanings. So I just think it was a great interview. I just encourage people to listen to it. If you like John Malkovich, I mean, who doesn't like John?
And who doesn't like John? And by the way, if you haven't seen In the Line of Fire, just stop whatever you're doing right now and go watch it. I literally, unrelated, not knowing that Malkovich was going to be on that pod and having no reason to do it, about four nights before the pod came out, my wife and I were out on a date, and I turned to her, and out of nowhere, I just said, I know things about pigeons, Lily. And then she had to have an explanation because it was just the most random thing. But for whatever reason, In the Line of Fire had been stuck in my head all day.
I thought it wasn't it people?
Oh, no, yes, until the very last line of the movie when they're sitting on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and he's looking out and he says, I bet that pigeon's going to take off before the other one does. She goes, how'd you know that? And his line through the whole movie had been, I know things about people, Lily.
Even just as simple as even that simple thing of give me that look, Abe, by the way,
wish I'd been there for you, buddy.
What's so interesting though is you brought that up because one of my favorite, it's interesting how like people get forgotten. God, we're going over. I'm sorry. Is Harry Chapin, who I loved. I loved Harry Chapin. I mean, the guy died before we were even born. But when you listen to the Cats in the Cradle, most people don't realize the ending of the song is he became his dad. And my father never allowed me to listen to the song in the house. That was like a song that was banned from the Friedman household.
Fascinating.
But listen, my dad's one of those awesome, cool guys, like, that would go to work every day. You could he was that guy, take the train, work 16 hours a day. Thank God he did really well, but he was that guy, and that hardworking guy.
So it hit too close to home.
Yeah, it hit too close to home. And listen, my dad, took me bowling on Sundays, and always was, but he was, you have that fear when you're, that you're not spending enough time. So, listen, we live in a time where people have way too much time and aren't spending time with their children. So for the people out there listening, we're going to shut up. Take your kids out this weekend. Take your loved ones out this weekend. Show your kids a ballpark. Take your kids somewhere. It is so important to do stuff with your children.
I head out tomorrow morning with my kids out to our nature house, jump on the trampoline. We're going to swing on the swing. We're going to go hiking. We're going to barbecue. I'm taking your advice. Thank you.
Yeah. And Turbo, don't listen to that song. Listen to Taxi, and listen to the Taxi.
Do I know you? I knew you were going to say Taxi.
But listen to Taxi and the sequel to Taxi. And just because most people don't know this, you probably didn't know this, but Taxi is the only song that's ever been played 2 nights in a row on Johnny Carson. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they got such fanfare from him playing Taxi the first night that everybody wrote in, and literally in those days, it was like writing or calling in, I guess. It would have to be calling in or telexing in. We want to see that song again. And it was the only time a performer ever performed 2 nights in a row the same song on Johnny Carson. Okay, on that note, that is our culture section of the show. you got to live lives. And we both love music. We both love, you don't love sports like I do.
No.
And we
No, I
both love
used
music.
to. I used to. When I just really quickly, when I lived in Arizona, I used to write for the paper, and I was assigned to, of course, the culture section, the movie section, music section, concerts. But one of the things that because I used to go at the Jewish community centers where the Phoenix Suns used to practice, weirdly, and so I was always around those guys, and so I asked to be put into the NBA section because I'm obsessed with basketball, have been for many years, and they said no, more senior people are going to do that, but you can be assigned to the WNBA. So I was, and I covered the Mercury, and I used to party with those girls, and Lori Petty and her lesbian bar, A League of Their Own, which existed there, and every WNBA member was partying there every night. So I had my brush with sports between them and the Diamondbacks, who I was obsessed with. I was there for a long time. Basketball, when I was in the army, I used to sneak out of my barracks in the middle of the night because I was in Israel, and so the time difference was swapped. So whenever anyone was in the finals, I would illegally break into the commander's station where there was a TV, and I would watch the games. And if I'd been caught, I would have been arrested. So yeah, you can say I used to be obsessed with sports.
Well, I was obsessed with Goldschmidt from the Diamondbacks, and I was so happy that the Yankees signed. It was probably his final year. Definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But I've always followed Goldie's career, not because he's half Jewish, maybe, but I've always been obsessed with Paul Goldschmidt. So yeah,
And we
and
won't get
of
into my
course,
Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson takes. We'll save that
another
for
guy.
another show.
Another guy that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame that won't because of politics. And I hate the Red Sox, but if anybody deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, it's
Actually, the
Kurt
bloody
Schilling.
sock guy.
And yeah, so okay, you know what? I got to say you know what I think is often missing is this. This is like something that's been like a lost art form. I'm not saying I'm trying to create an art form here. Is when we're with our friends, this is what we're talking about. Literally, I'm on a text strand this week going back and forth between J and N. I don't want to say their names, and talking to them about Lane Kiffin leaving LSU to go to. And I think he's the biggest douche scumbag in the world. And this was our discussion this week. It was like not one political thing. It was how big of a douchebag is Lane Kiffin for leaving LSU. I mean, Ole Miss. And especially because I know Ole Miss fans with Mandy Gudasakra and her husband. So I was like really pissed. And we're going back. Have those conversations. It's so much more valuable to have those goofy, fun conversations where you want to kill yourself over that rather than the other stuff we're discussing. So
Absolutely.
have a blessed weekend. Have a safe weekend, everybody. You can find us everywhere at thedailycheatsheet.com. That's thedailycheatsheet.com. You will be missed next week, all, but that's thedailycheatsheet.com. I want to wish everybody good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all. Can I just want to thank David and Turbo and everybody on Truth from the bottom of our
Absolutely.
hearts for spreading the word, for being, big advocates and loyal supporters from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. And I know I'm missing a bunch of people, but I know they're in the rants, so on Rumble. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts.